Welcome. Ed Martin here on a Pro America Report. Great to be with you. All you need to do is just 1 hour here together and you'll figure it all out. You'll hear from the best people. You'll understand everything. You can also follow up by going to proamericareport.com, proamericareport.com, and check out everything there. Sign up for the Daily Wink. Goes out at 5 a.m. Pacific time. I never stop working for you, and it goes out right in your inbox. Today, I mistyped. Should have said export. I wrote import. Very devastating. Good check, though. Good check to see if people are listening, reading closely, and immediately, within moments, greatest readers, greatest recipients of the emails in the world, greatest part of the team emailed back, about 5 of them. People love to tell you when you mess up. It's so funny. They love to tell you when you make, especially a typo. Anyway, fixed it on the second batch that went out. That's one of my tricks, by the way. They go out in batches, so I fix it on the second one, so hopefully not too many people see it. Anyway, proamericareport.com, sign in there. Hope you had a great weekend. I did. Tons going on with the kids and the family. Went fishing with my sons. Got skunked. I always get skunked. I'm a terrible fisherman. But my son caught a fish. That was good. We went for about an hour down on the dock near where we were, and it was great, really fun. And of course, my sons care because whenever we go fishing, I make sure to either bring them sugary soda, like Sunkist or even Coke regular, or some kind of treat. So this time they wanted Nerds. I don't even know what that is, except it's like sugar, colored sugar hardened into little bite-sized pieces. Nasty, terrible for you. But anyway, they had a good time. So we had a great weekend, and we're into it. I am live from the swamp. I was great to be on with Andrea Kaye earlier tonight. Andrea Kaye, the great Andrea Kaye show. I hope you're tuned in there. Go to theanswersandiego.com for her show, my show. Get everything there as a podcast. And it looks like, she and I were hatching our plans. We were going to be in Florida together, not together, but in Florida at the same time, because we were both going to broadcast from the Republican convention in Jacksonville, Florida. Well, that's off. And I don't even know if there's going to be a Charlotte, North Carolina portion of the convention. I just don't know. So I'm hoping to be a part of it, but we'll see. I'm not even sure we can tell, but we will. We'll stay tuned. But go listen to the Andrea Kaye show. You always should. All right, listen. What you need to know today is kind of an important one. There's been a transition, and we need to note it because David Horowitz always teaches me to say what it is. Don't not beat around the edges. Yeah, I just got a text from one of the listeners. Nerds, they're pebble-sized sour candy that have a great crunch. I don't know. Okay, maybe. But anyway, it just makes my sons happy. And that's, when you're fishing. When I was a boy, whenever I went fishing, it seemed like we had something good like soda or sandwiches. I just remember it as a boy. That was always a highlight. I mean, and again, I'm a terrible fisherman. I like being out there, but I don't really, I don't worry about catching much fish. But back to my point here. Transition happened. And we need to name it because you're not going to see it in the press much. You're not going to understand what's going on. It's up close to 60 nights in a row in Portland where people gather and they say they're protesting, but they're not protesters. They try to burn buildings. They try to burn federal buildings. And then recently what's become clear is they are assaulting, they are terrorizing, they are attacking law enforcement, this time with lasers, so much so that I think there are 10 confirmed injuries and 2 people that may have 2 law officers that may have permanent damage, permanent kind of blindness because of lasers. Now, here's my point. You don't get to say you're out for a march and a protest chanting. And even if you kick over a garbage can or even push on a fence, that's getting closer to a riot. It's getting closer to terrorism, but it's kind of, I'll let it lump into the protesting side of things. When you burn some stuff, that's pretty far along, right? I mean, if you burn your own stuff or burn each other, maybe that's okay. But when you start to burn buildings and burn garbage cans, and then when you attack federal buildings and federal officers, you've crossed the line. You're not protesters, you're rioters. And you're not just rioters, you're terrorists. So we have terrorists on the streets because understand, this isn't the era where you're using a laser in your kind of pen-shaped flashlight, a pen light where you'd use for a PowerPoint display or just a regular display on a blackboard or something in the old days. Nowadays, these lasers have been fine-tuned by technology. They're still very cheap, relatively inexpensive, but they're potent. They're not quite Star Wars or Star Trek is what I was thinking, where you have to use a gun, but they're getting close. They're getting close. They're lasers that are meant to maim. If you were able to afford it and you could get into it, there's technology, lasers that can burn people. I don't think most people can get that easily, but they can get the stuff that is maiming, terrorizing law officers. Now, my point here is that it's time to cross over and be a little more frank. If you have a laser in your hand and you're trying to blind a law enforcement officer, you're trying to blind a cop, I would say that's use of lethal force. I'm not sure you could die from it, but pretty close. And I would say you would be well within your rights if you're a law officer to shoot the person. Because you could really lose your life. You probably, at a certain point, these lasers will be so strong, if you get them into your eye, it can damage your brain. I wouldn't be surprised. But this is so far past things, and here's my point. This is not funny. This isn't interesting. This isn't serious. There's not real demands made like, oh, we have this problem over here. There's this group of people starving over there. We have this concern. No one's making those demands. They're simply terrorizing the city of Portland in this case. It's happening in other cities. And so these people are terrorists. Now, here's where it gets interesting, in my opinion. At a certain point, all of this terrorism is counterproductive for the side of the ledger I think they're on. I don't know. They're kind of so far gone that it's hard to call them only liberal Democrats. They're Antifa, they're Black Lives Matter, but only one of the two major parties has embraced those people. And so at a certain point, when you don't have Joe Biden and his party able to separate from the terrorists, every day that goes on, I think you have more and more people that look up and go, yeah, I don't recognize that. Those people, that's not something I recognize. We're not talking about the late John Lewis, the congressman from Atlanta area, from Georgia, who was lying in state earlier today in the Congress, who was he's very liberal, but a very devoted non-violent guy. Started marching with Martin Luther King Jr. when he was 23, John Lewis was, and for the rest of his career, he pretty liberal for me, way too liberal on lots of issues, but he was someone who sort of walked the walk, not just talked the talk. Well, where has John Lewis gone? Where has all the folks like him gone? And here's the payout. I'm pretty sure, I'm very sure that the politics of this are getting out of control for the Democrats. I think the president has been clear. He's going to defend federal buildings. He's going to defend the places where they ask for help and are invited in, they'll help. But if the mayor of Portland, Mayor Wheeler, wants to let his city burn, he can do it, but he's not going to be able to let the federal courthouse burn. And so now the terrorists, again, they don't have demands, they don't have expectations, they don't have any articulable sense of what they're about. They're just about terrorizing, violence, hate, evil. Evil, that's what they're really about. They're just evil. I mean, there's a point where I forget now who told me this. They said, when you see some of these people, how they act, you say that what's happening is evil. They're standing over people and they're hurting people and they're damaging property. So the twist here, the change here in the last 5 days, I think we'll look back on it and say, okay, that was a big moment. Because until then, it may have been confusing to the country. And to be clear, there's no help coming from the mainstream media, who refuses to cover this stuff in a meaningful way. When Press Secretary McEnany played the videos of some of these hateful people, these terrorists, on Friday, I think it was, in the press conference, the mainstream media turned it off. They didn't cover it. They moved away. They don't want to cover that. Well, it doesn't matter at this point. Sometimes it's an image that can capture what's happened. And in my opinion, the image of lasers being used to maim law officers, to maim law enforcement officers, that's kind of I can see that. And I can see how cowardly and nasty and terroristic that is. So it sort of captures it pretty easily. And I think, you don't have to worry, you don't have to think that through anymore. All right. Speaking of lawlessness, in a moment, we're going to talk with John O'Connor. John O'Connor is a prolific writer. He's going to talk to us, give us a legal analysis of the McCloskey case in St. Louis, where they stood their ground, stood up for themselves. Now they find themselves maybe charged with a crime. Well, we'll talk about that with John O'Connor. Later on, Dr. Brett M. Decker will be in. We'll talk a little China with him. And don't forget, stick around. I will explain what Kamala Harris is doing, who's going to be the VP pick for Joe Biden, and a lot more in the last segment. Hang on. Be right back. Ed Martin here on the Pro America Report. Be back in a moment.